Right, welcome to this very special edition on the UN Food Summit that was held, or that has been held just a few minutes ago ended. And here is a wrap up to this important summit that took place, in which the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged nations to revamp the food priorities, saying the world needed food systems that safeguard the environment. He said that the food systems can and must play a leading role in meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, and said that those goals include ending poverty, protecting ecosystems, and ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns that limit waste. That was a word or a statement by the UN Secretary General. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also addressed this important summit, saying that or stressing the significance of collaborating international efforts to confront food crises and achieve food security. He also spoke about establishing a sustainable food system that would help achieve food safety or food security for all communities. The President stressed that the danger of famine limits the ability of countries and governments on implementing the goals of sustainable development, and said that Egypt has accelerated its role regionally and internally by taking preparatory measures for such a summit. Internally, the President said that Egypt has launched a national dialogue in December 2020 that included all concerned governmental institutions, representatives from the private sector and civil society associations, resulting in a declaration to transfer an integral, sustainable, healthy system that included a number of initiatives, including the pupils, an integral, healthy life for people, and a special one for pupils and students across the governorates of Egypt. The head of state also spoke about the regional and continental aspects, and he said that Egypt was keen on continuing cooperation with Africa to achieve food security, adding that Egypt has achieved a healthy food system vision for the continent. At the end, the President called on the international community to put an integral global food system to fulfill the aspiration of people and avert the challenge of food insecurities through different other threats, and also avert other challenges, including the challenges of sustainable development and the challenges of climate change. Let's watch the statements of the President in full.
I would like to thank the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for inviting me to this important summit, and his dedication to be having this summit in its specific timing without delay, despite the challenges. Those challenges, we have come to be facing them on a daily basis for the coronavirus pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, this summit comes at a very important timing, and it demands us to be exerting more efforts to be facing challenges. And I think you could be agreeing with me that having sustainable food systems that ensures food security in our societies comes at the top of the agenda for our countries, especially at a time of climate change, which leads to an increase in temperatures, desertification, and making it easier or harder for us to be having agricultural lands, leading to worse food security and political conflicts in some countries. the danger of famine has come to face a lot of people in Africa, and we need solutions, we need fast solutions to be protecting people, especially women and children, from those challenges and hardships. Governments are trying to be protecting the citizens all over the countries. And Egypt thinks that this summit provides a very important opportunity to be presenting solutions, to be having better cooperation between the international governments and institutions. And Egypt has done its role, specifically within the country, to be having a dialogue, a societal dialogue. Ever since December 2020, between the governmental institutions and the private sector and the civil society organizations. And this dialogue reached solutions for the food security and the food system in the country, especially for the school children, for a healthier lifestyle and healthier meals. We aim at having bigger cooperation with the international institutions, and we are focusing specifically on this program, not just in Egypt but in the region. And we need a united African front that reflects the priorities of the African peoples towards food security. We intend to be having more efforts with our brothers in Africa, leading to food security within the Agenda of Sustainable Development in Africa 2063. This summit, we will be having discussions that will lead to bigger and better efforts for our citizens in the field of food security. And in my opinion, our success today depends on having solutions to be reaching a food system that could be implemented on the ground with consideration of the properties of every nation and every country. We need more funds in creative ways, innovative ways, effective ways, in cooperation with the development partners, to be reaching our goals and our potential for the sake of our peoples. Thank you.
Right, welcome back, and that was the full speech of the President before the UN Food Systems Summit that took place here on the sideline of the 76 UN General Assembly's meetings in New York, and that was a virtual record of the President to the attendance of such an important summit, which takes place at a very critical time, as the President said, and that as was reiterated by most of those who participated, or the leaders who participated. Here the President has spoken of some of the important axes of the significance of such a summit, and sent several messages. To highlight this, we have with us here with us our dear Ambassador Mohamed Shazly, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you so much for joining us.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Here the President spoke about the first, he spoke on several axes. First of all is the significance of collaboration among partners. Second, the threats and challenges, and how this is, or this challenge, food security and food system, should be addressed in a global way? And second, how Egypt or the measures that were taken by Egypt internally and also internationally, or rather regionally and continentally. Tell me, or let me know here your reading to the statements of the president at this very significant summit.
This is a very important and crucial summit. Food is the basic necessity for existence. If you don't have food, you cannot plan, you cannot build, you cannot have a nation, and so on. We are today in the third decade of the 21st century. It is scandalous that at this time you have famines in Somalia, you have famines in Madagascar, you have famines in South Sudan, in Yemen. This is unacceptable to humanity, and something has to be done. Food security is not just about agriculture. If you take in the third world countries, the amount of waste because of the primitive ways food is transported and food is saved. You need silos, you need refrigeration, you need modern facilities to eliminate the waste that is in the food production. We are facing a very serious challenge in the future, countries of the third world. For the last, say, 20,000 years since humans started farming, farming was you sow your seeds, and after they produce, you consume some and you save some to plant again. This is no longer feasible. What is happening today is that I think there are 7 international giant companies all over, of course, the north industrialized countries, have a monopoly over producing genetically modified seeds, and producing genetically modified livestock and animals. Therefore, the genetically modified seeds are sterile. Therefore, you cannot plant them and save a few to replant. You will have to rely on importing the genetically modified seeds from these giant companies. And this is becoming prevalent all over the world. This is a very serious challenge, a very serious technological challenge, and food challenge to developing countries. You cannot also take food security without taking into consideration water security. Agriculture depends on water. You cannot have a country that wants to manipulate a river for its own interests and denying water to other members in the river. This is a very serious problem which threatens stability and world peace.
Actually, we'll go through this, but focusing first on this food systems summit, and as we have seen here by the UN chief, or the UN Secretary General Guterres here, reiterated by the statements of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, that the world needs to put a kind of global system, food system for food security, or food, in this case, insecurities. Here, the President has called for an integral plan among the development partners. How do you view this? How do you view the importance of sitting together in order to put such a global plan as was said during this summit?
I think this is a very important aspect, because this is a problem that cannot be solved individually, especially taking into consideration the effect of climate change. If we don't do something internationally over climate change, this is going to affect very seriously the ability to produce food. If you do not tackle the problem of pollution, this is also going to affect very adversely and very seriously the issue of food. Look at what is happening in the oceans and the seas today. The oceans and the seas are being polluted by chemicals, by industrial waste, by plastics, and this a very important aspect of the food production is fisheries.
Let's not just forget also how climate change is affecting the deforestation, the desertification, the several wildfires that took place in a number of European countries and other countries worldwide. This is the problem of the climate change. Hence came how to make relevance between making a food system while at the same time safeguarding the environment. How can the world get together in order to find putting a safe system for food and at the same time preserve environment?
This is a very important aspect, and this relates to sustainable development. We have been, propagating the importance of growth until it has become a disease. What is happening, for instance, in the rainforests in the Amazon that are being cut down.
Yes.
This is not just affecting our ability to produce food.
Yeah.
The paradox is that they are cutting down trees in order to turn the forests into cultivable land. But at the same time, if you cut down trees, this leads to earth erosion. And this even affects the atmosphere,
the oxygen,
the oxygen. So it is not affecting our ability to produce food, it is affecting our ability to preserve life.
Mm-hmm.
The pollution of the fossil fuels, CO2 emissions, all of this is affecting the climate, is affecting our ability to produce food and to sustain life. Therefore, this is a global issue. We have to sit together and put an agenda in order to be able to meet this challenge.
Your Excellency, here you spoke, or you pinpointed your finger on a very important issue, that we have to preserve the climate change, or what is needed from us in the climate change, while at the same time safeguard or put a food system for to confront food crises. But here you pinpointed your finger on something very important, that the world has to sit together. We are aware that Africa, for an instance, you mentioned 3 countries, they are even more than those 3 countries who suffer famine. not, we're just speaking about one continent, not to mention the rest. But Africa itself was not the reason of the climate change. And hence came this urge or this call by Africa and by those developing countries who are suffering from issues that they were not the reason of it. Hence came this important call the President has made, which is the world has to sit together in order to be able to put a food system to fulfill the aspiration of people at large. So we're speaking here about climate change that we had nothing to do with it, rather big or large industrial countries had to do more. So how far does this summit pinpoint at such important aspect the climate change and its reflection on protecting the threat of famine?
Let me tell you something. I'm not going to exonerate anybody from the crisis. The industrial countries with their CO2 emissions are largely responsible to the climate change. But if we are talking about food security, we cannot exonerate the Africans from responsibility. We are talking about a very important aspect in food production is stability and security. Sudan has 200 million acres of arable land.
Yes, indeed.
Due to instability and due to civil war and due to unrest, they suffered from famine. South Sudan, who is suffering from famine, has a tremendous potential of food production. I give you another example of Angola, where they have an enormous
Yes, indeed, and
potential.
Uganda.
During the civil war, they planted landmines. The farmers, when they went to plow their land, the landmines exploded and killed some and maimed some. So they stopped farming their land. So political security and peace is an integral part of food security. Security is a package. If you don't have political security, if you don't have financial security, if you don't have food security, if you don't have water security, the whole system is going to collapse. So let us, the whole international community has to take part in building a secure environment that is fomenting life in general.
Indeed. If we get back to our indoor homework, as said, and Egypt has carried out with, or has put the life of people as a forefront priority. And hence many initiatives have been made in this regard. So in this very particular issue we're speaking about food system, Egypt has, as said by the President, has made a dialogue among all concerned parties from the institutions, the governmental institutions, ministries, social or civil society, association, private sector, and all this, and they came out with this initiative for a healthy life. Tell me about the measures that were taken by Egypt in several sectors that are affecting the food securities, and measures that were taken by Egypt at large.
Let me tell you, as I said before, that everything is interconnected.
Yes.
If you don't have a healthy human being, you will not be able to work. Agriculture is a very demanding job. Those who stand in the fields to plant, to dig canals, to reap the crops, to fight the pests. You need a healthy, energetic human being. If you have a sick, weak human being, he will not be able to do the job.
Definitely.
If you don't have healthy, clean water for the people to drink, it will cause disease. If you don't have educated people to know how to transform agriculture from the way our great-grandfathers used to farm their lands into the 21st century, mobilizing science and mobilizing technology in order to get a better yield. I think Egypt has stepped very promising steps. You know, today Egypt is one of the major countries in the yield of the acre of wheat, although Egypt is not in the wheat zone climatically. But we have achieved tremendous advancement in the yield. We are, I think, amongst the first country in producing tomatoes and oranges. These are, you know, signs that we are taking up science and technology and modernity into the agricultural sector.
Here, if we speak about Egypt taking steps internally with what you said respectively here, what we have reached from the agriculture, not to mention, of course, the this mega project of cultivating more than 4.5 million fidans and those health initiatives for people at large and students and pupils and all this issue. Also, Egypt has been working on behalf of Africa, and that was very much obvious during the president's speech before the UN summit today. How far has Egypt been putting Africa in its forefront agenda in order to carry out with its vision, or the 2030 Vision for Sustainable Development, along with the African one of 2063 agenda, particularly of what concerns this area of food security?
I think this is a very important issue in the sense that, as I have said before, the countries that are suffering from famine are mostly in Africa.
Yes, indeed.
And if you take also the Arab world, we are the highest importers of food in the world, the Arab countries. We import, I think, 70% of our food. This is a very serious challenge that we have to take into consideration, and we have to realize that we cannot face this challenge without a common strong front, because now there are technological aspects. It's not a matter of a farmer going into his field and throwing some seeds and then picking up the produce. No, it is technology, it is science, it is freedom of technological flow of information between the industrialized and the developing countries. So it's a very big challenge for all of us, and if we do not realize the extent of the challenge and put our hands together in order to face this challenge, we will not succeed. But I'm optimistic. I see that we are putting hand in hand, whether it is the Arabs or the Africans, in order to achieve a very important challenge and to pass a very serious obstacle and hurdle.
Here I'm just reiterating or quoting the president's statements also today, and he said that this summit is considered a unique chance to boost international cooperation with regard to putting this global system. And at the same time, mobilize necessary funding to confront the challenge of food insecurities. How far do we need the international institutions, particularly the funding ones, to put a kind of plan for programs, particularly for developing countries? How do we need to mobilize the necessary funds for such a cause?
Let me tell you something, that the most promising areas in the world in terms of food production are mainly in developing countries. Funding is a very serious issue. Security also is a very serious issue. If you take Somalia, for instance, Somalia has a tremendous potential in fisheries, for instance, and had a very important role in animal husbandry. It used to export live animals and beef and camels to many countries, including Egypt. Now, I mean, due to the destruction of the infrastructure, due to the instability, it cannot produce. Sudan is a very important country. If you go even to South America, it's the same thing. These countries need two things: they need funding, and they need technology, and stability, of course.
Definitely. If we speak about food security, we also have to highlight the issue of water scarcity, particularly that Egypt has spoken about this issue loudly in several of those sessions that were held in the UN General Assemblies, or in some of the sessions that took place. The President has spoken about that during the climate change. The President has reiterated the issue during the UN G8 or General Assembly's formal meeting. And water. The President has spoken of the importance of safeguarding the rights of people to water and the rights of people to their rivers. How do you view how this important is a very important issue for this upcoming stage, for the stability inside the continent, also for securities, including food securities?
This is a very critical and a very important issue. As I said before, you cannot separate food security from water security. You cannot separate health security from water security. You cannot separate the environment, the security of the environment, from water security. Part of the damage that the Ethiopian dam is responsible, or will be responsible for, if it is not stopped, is the
land fertility.
Erosion. No, not only land fertility, the erosion of the delta shores. So this is related to land, to food security. It is related to health security. It is related to environmental security. We are, approaching an era of history where technology has to be reviewed on the historical rights of people. You cannot come after 10,000 years and say, no, this water does not belong to Egypt. This is something that a civilization has been built upon. This is something that security has been built upon. That is why, I felt dismayed when Ethiopia claimed that this is a technical matter, it is not a security matter. And unfortunately, the Security Council, in a way, sided with that. This is a very integral part of the security and stability of the continent of Africa, and indeed the security and stability of the world. There are tens of rivers that are shared by countries. You have in Africa several, the Senegal River, the Volta River, all of these are shared by several countries. If you go to North America, rivers that are joined by the United States and Mexico, and the United States and Canada, in South America. So if you transgress over the right of countries to share the water of rivers, I think this is going to create a catastrophic case of instability, not only in Africa, but in the whole world.
Finally here, if I may ask you of how or what could be seen as an integral global system for developmental partners to carry out with food systems, one that can really satisfy the aspiration of people worldwide?
I think, as I said before, security is a package. You cannot...
But you did not say before what would be the plan, right?
Yes. The plan should encompass all the aspects of security. You cannot have food security without water security. You cannot have food security without stability and peace, with people fighting and killing and putting landmines in fertile territories. You cannot have food security without the transfer of technology from the rich countries to the poor countries. You cannot have food security if some countries monopolize the genetically modified organisms, yes, and so on. So it has to be encompass all that. This is something you cannot have in the 21st century famine. This is scandalous. It cannot be permitted.
It is very much indeed at the 21st century, and there are still famine in some of countries and poverty, enormous poverty in others. I guess with that call, we will leave it here. Your Excellency, Ambassador Mohamed Shazly, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for the late time of coming out.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much.
Dear viewers, that was a special edition for the coverage of the UN Food System Summit that took place just 1 hour ago. Many thanks for watching. Now we'll leave you with the Panorama News.